All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to talk about what Oscar De La Hoya has to say about the next fight for Errol Spence Jr. or Terence Crawford and wanting Virgil Ortiz to be the guy. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. In this video, we're going to be in the 147-pound division. We got a very good fight. Well, I don't know if it's going to be a good fight or not, but a very good young fighter goes by the name of Virgil Ortiz that will be fighting tonight on DAZN against a guy named McKinnison. Should be a dominant performance for Virgil Ortiz. Most definitely one of the best welterweights in the world. Most definitely one of the top prospects in the welterweight division, without a doubt. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing him fight, get back in the ring on this card that's taking place tonight. They're also on the card is going to be a very funny a fight I'm looking forward to seeing Blair Cobbs and fighting Maurice Hooker. Also much more good, should be some comedy coming on after that fight takes place as well. But in the midst of all of this, Oscar De La Hoya says that, look, this is what Virgil Ortiz wants to do next. And it is be the guy that fights Errol Spence Jr. or Terence Crawford if that fight doesn't happen. But you know there's going to be some hooks that come along with that. Now, before I get into that in depth, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are a longtime subscriber and supporter, thank you so much for your continued support for the channel. Thank you for continuing to chop it up with me about boxing in the live stream and in the videos that we do every day. You guys' support is what really does keep the channel going, especially during some of these real dry times in boxing. So thank you. If you're new to the channel, hey, please accept my invitation to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you can be notified of when we release these videos. And look, man, you may agree with me on some topics, disagree with me on other topics, but we almost always, as long as it's a respectful conversation, can have a good conversation about boxing in the comment section and in the live streams. And really, you know, at the end of the day, that's what the channel and this boxing forum is about, just generating and participating in really good boxing conversations, which we all as hardcore boxing fans enjoy. So hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you can be notified of when we do it. So let's get into this. Virgil Ortiz is no joke. Very strong fighter, welterweight fighter out of Dallas, Texas. I don't think he's out of DeSoto, but out of Dallas, Texas, from the same gym or gyms that Errol Spence Jr. trained in when Errol was a youth. Style is not radically different from Errol Spence Jr., just a really strong, good, fundamentally sound boxer. Definitely a top talent, and is going to be somebody to be reckoned with in both the 154-pound division and the 147-pound division that he's currently campaigning in. So in the lead up to this fight that we're going to get to see him fight this evening, and I'm looking forward to, his promoter, Oscar De La Hoya, who's the president of Golden Boy Promotions, one of the best welterweights, but one of the best welterweights in the last 30 years. Now, as a promoter, I got slightly different feelings about him, but as a fighter, whenever I talk about Oscar De La Hoya, I've got to point out, man, that this dude knows his boxing. That guy was a terrific talent, gave us a lot of really good fights. So I always respect Oscar De La Hoya for that. Now, he says that after this fight with Virgil Ortiz and McKinnison, that he wants Virgil Ortiz to fight the Errol Spence Jr. versus Terence Crawford. Either one of those guys, if they're not able to make that fight, which at this point in time, I mean, reasonable people could believe that fight ain't happening. Let me put it that way. I've been optimistic the entire time, but reasonable people could be led watching what's going on and say, man, we probably not going to get this fight, you know. And judging by the history of boxing, man, you don't get those type of fights more often than you do. kind of stinks, really stinks about boxing, but it is what it is. Love the sport, but it really stinks. You know what I mean? And when people from the UFC point out the fact that they get really good fights, it's very, very difficult to argue with them that their top fighters always fight each other because they all work for the same company, not just the same promotional guy. They work for literally the same company and pretty much have no choice. Where boxers can, they'll negotiate themselves into and out of fights all the time. But you know that Oscar De La Hoya is, in the words of some of my younger subscribers, he is Captain Crunch. Captain Crunch, just cap. Devin Haney style cap. Yeah, works because, Devin, I got to put that mention there, be saying everybody's cap. But anyway, this dude is seriously not telling the truth with this one. Because if this conversation begins with him and Errol Spence Jr., what's going to come out of this? Errol Spence Jr. will need to fight on DAZN. It needs to be a split pay-per-view between DAZN and Showtime, just like he said was the case between Jaime Munguia and Jermall Charlo when he talked about making that fight. Just like he's saying between Gervonta Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia in trying to make that fight. He would, if there was any seriousness to it or discussion going on about it, would most definitely be trying to say the same thing, that look, DAZN deserves to be involved in the promotion because they have been actively involved in promoting and helping to build Virgil Ortiz in his career. Now, that I believe, even though that there is wider separation in the marketability between Terence Crawford, between Errol Spence Jr. and Virgil Ortiz than there may be between the other two that I mentioned, Jermall Charlo and Jaime Munguia, and Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia, because Jaime Munguia has, he definitely has a little status to him, right? Close to what Charlo has. I don't think it's quite what Charlo has, but it's close to what Charlo has. But they weren't putting up the money for that fight. And Ryan Garcia has good stat, has, as far as in the ring, he may be lacking a little bit in his accomplishments, but as far as what he's doing as a ticket seller, he's a ticket seller for sure. Got to give that man his credit for that. But Virgil Ortiz and Errol Spence Jr., that will not be the case. However, you do know what the argument will be. The argument would be, well, it's going to be in Dallas, and Virgil Ortiz is Mexican, so most of the people that are going to be buying the tickets in Dallas, which will sell out, they may do 60,000 tickets if Virgil Ortiz fights Errol Spence Jr. in Dallas Stadium. But, the reason that people would come out wouldn't be Errol Spence. It would be the young Mexican fighter, Virgil Ortiz. So we deserve 50-50 in the fight. And what will happen? There'll be a lot of talk about the fight. And at the end of the day, that fight won't get made because nobody's going to do that, man. Showtime is not sending or partially sending any of their top guys over to the zone, especially with the way the DAZN behaved when they came in the market, which pretty much was saying that Showtime is going to be we're going to drive Showtime out of the business of boxing in the next 2 years. So, all of that stuff got quelched with that, I do believe. But at the same time, I like the fight a lot. And if Virgil Ortiz is ready and it can be made in some reasonable way or unreasonable way from my perspective as a boxing fan, let's make it happen. But I just will, I'll put a little grain of salt on that with Oscar De La Hoya saying that. But anyway, it is what it is. And also for Terence Crawford as well, because Terence Crawford, I think, will be gone. I don't even think Terence Crawford would fight Virgil Ortiz. That I think he would keep his word and try to go up there to 154 pounds. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Deuces.